Good morning to everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Ronak Agarwal, who has got All India rank 13 in CSE 2019. Ronak will be sharing about his strategy and how did he prepare and what all kind of hurdles he faced, how did he overcome because he was working in between. As the talks will evolve, you'll get to know more about Ronak. Now, before we proceed with our talk with Ronak, let me just briefly give a background of Ronak. Ronak is from Calcutta. He is unmarried and he's a general category candidate. His father owns a business. And Ronak's all education has been in Kolkata itself. His 10th and followed by 12th, which he did in commerce. And then he did his BSc, I stand corrected, BCom from St. Xavier's in Calcutta. Alongside, you were also pursuing CA, which you completed, and then you appeared for CSE. This was Ronak's third attempt for CSE. He started in 2017, then 18 and 19 was the third attempt in which he has excelled himself, and his All India rank is 13, as I mentioned. Ronak had excellent academic record. He has been winning medals and medals after another medal. Ronak was gold medalist in his BCom honors, where he broke all records, and his was the highest CGPA in the history of St. Xavier's. And then his CA, when he completed, his All India rank was 5. So he is kind of accustomed to, being on the top of the list, I would say. Ronak enjoys the interest of poem writing in Hindi and English. Okay, Ronak, you are based in Calcutta, and as I understand that your roots are in Rajasthan. So how this transition happened from Rajasthan to Calcutta?
So I was born and brought up in Calcutta only, but my grandfather's father, like great grandfather, he was born and brought up in Rajasthan. So we still have places in Rajasthan where we go every year, but the entire family of ours has been settled in Calcutta. Since as you told that we have a family business,
Yeah.
and so that has been continuing in Calcutta itself.
Okay. Ronak, your father has a business and your mother is a housewife. And I presume that there is nobody, blood relations who is in civil services
No.
or government service. So what propelled you to not to follow your father's footsteps and venture into taking a job with government?
So not only blood relation. I have nobody to look up to as a civil servant in my relatives or known people, friends, family. None of them are actually in civil services. But the thing is that my grandfather, although he was not really that educated, but he always had this dream and he knew about all this civil services. He told me that you can earn lots of money, you can get many accolades, but then the satisfaction of the civil service is something which is very different.
Yeah.
So he always told about instead of money, focus on name, fame, and satisfaction. And he told me about civil services. Before that, I did not know anything about it. But when I got to know about this, I searched a lot, got to know what it involves, how much preparation it takes, and what we need to do after we get into it. And then I made my mind that it's better to go for this only.
Okay.
But since the next question should be that then why CA? Many people do that, but then it's not necessary that you have to have a backup. It totally depends on your mood, on your self-confidence, and what you want to pursue. The thing is that because I have no backup as a civil servant in my family, I was really afraid to plunge into civil services without doing anything else. And so normally if you go for IITs or an engineer, you can get a job being a graduate. But being a BCom graduate, I did not end up getting a good job also. So better I thought of completing my CA and then to go for civil services.
Okay. Ronak, at what stage of your academic journey you decided to jump into civil services? I mean, was it a plan right from your school days or in graduation or in CA?
So just before graduation, it was in class 12, 2011. At that time, we had made the mind. But it was in 2011 only when I started preparing for CA. My foundation was in 11 itself. So that was the time.
Okay. So at the time of when you started your CA, you were also pursuing your graduation because your graduation was also ongoing from 2012 to 14.
11 to 14, yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is the time you decided.
Yes.
Okay. Then most of these students, aspirants who are wanting to join civil services, they would opt for humanities stream. So why commerce?
So in 11 and 12, I had the commerce background, first of all. So definitely, if I change my stream from commerce to art suddenly in graduation, that would not have been very justified on my part. And secondly, because we had that commerce and business background, so a natural tint is already given. So yeah, I had that tilt for commerce as well. So I thought of going for BCom, and because I knew about civil services, I had made up my mind that I'll be going for commerce options as well.
So
So
Ronak,
that
you are kind of a perfect example where the myth is broken, where people feel that only those who are from humanities background do have an edge over others. But you had commerce background, you were a CA, and yet you were able to not only get into CSE list, also get the good rank. So, but let me still ask you this question: do you feel that humanities students do have an edge vis-a-vis science and commerce background students?
So they have an early mover advantage. That is the only edge which they have, because they already know about lots of topics. But the thing is, by class 10, whatever we are reading right now in UPSC, in Civil Service General Studies, those are basically all the common topics which we have done till class 10. Till class 10, everybody, whether it's science, arts, or commerce, everybody reads history, geography, science. It's quite common. But how you read it in class 10 and how you read it in civil service examination, there's a difference. There lies a difference. And because those who have humanities as their major in graduation, they actually know quite a lot about history also, about polity also. These are some areas which we had just read to get marks, and which at least I did and my friends did. So it does matter a lot that you know much about that. But once you are through, and once you are in the process, then the dream of clearing it's such that it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
And ultimately, for as talking about optionals, it is as good as any other optional, because if normally what people do is that they do not take the optional as the one which they had in their background in their graduation. That becomes a problem. But in my view, the option should be such that which actually becomes an asset for you and not a liability.
Yeah,
So
of course. We'll be talking more about optional a little later. Ronak, so what you're telling is, in case somebody has just cleared his 12th and he's going for graduation and he's also aiming for CSE, like you had made up your mind in 12th, he need not necessarily follow only humanities. If he has a commerce background, he should continue to follow commerce. And the early mover advantage, which you mentioned, which humanities students of from school have, it can be compensated by putting in little extra work.
yes, sir. Precisely.
All right. Coming to optional subject, which you were mentioning, of course, I mean, you had a commerce background, so naturally commerce and accountancy was your first choice for being taken an optional subject. Now, this dilemma, as you also mentioned, that there's a lot of dilemma in the minds of students. Somebody is from, medicine, or somebody has done, engineering, and they are now worried whether they should take that subject where they have already invested 5 years, 4 years, or should they switch to any subject which is humanities oriented and which will also assist them in mains. So just share your opinion about this.
So when I was making this decision, many people told me, like some of the seniors whom had got into contact through the process, they told me that commerce might not be a very viable alternative, because it's not not very scoring as compared to other subjects. That can be a thing, or the syllabus is quite huge, and better to opt for a less difficult option. Like we have anthropology going on very much recently. We have a history of sociology, political science, pub ad. These have been quite famous options. But the thing is that if you excel at something, better to stick with it, because optionals is given so as to give you an edge. So if you already have an edge over something, why not capitalize that? That is the only point. But again, even if you have, for example, had I been a BCom graduate and had I been a CA, but I was not very strong in my commerce, that can be a thing as well. I might have cleared CA in 4 or 5 attempts. I might not have been very confident in taxation. In that case, I might have looked for some other options. So it depends also that whatever your background is, how strong are you on that? So you need to analyze yourself. Like many people who have engineering as their background, they go for some other options because they feel that I am not quite good at maths, for example, or I am not that good at chemistry. That can those who are having chemistry honors. So it depends on how good were you at your academics in those subjects, and more importantly, just analyze the subject. Don't think about how scoring is it or not. Like if I talk about commerce and accountancy as optionals, it has one of the largest content with respect to syllabus.
Mm-hmm.
But paper one was such that I had already done a lot. Like in my CA entire syllabus is paper one. So normally people give 3 months to optionals, but I might have managed by just giving 1.5 or 2 months. So that helped me in focusing more on GS. So as you mentioned that the humanities students who might have had an edge on the GS papers, I tried to compensate it by taking commerce optionals, saving a month of time for optionals, and focusing more on the GS subjects. So it totally depends from person to person. I'm not saying that if you have a background or a graduation subject, stick to that only. If you are good at it, if you know all about it, then stick to that. Otherwise, if you're doubtful, you can go for some other option as well.
Okay, so the bottom line is that whichever subject enthuses you, in which you have interest, should be the one which is a choice for option.
And not which is small or which is scoring.
Of course, and another point is which you also mentioned, that people do tend to go by the past, that last year sociology did well or anthro did well, so we must take this one. This is also a myth.
Yes.
Okay. Ronak, you had your first attempt in 2017, second in 18, and this was your third attempt. Did you succeed in 17, 18? At what stage did you reach?
So in both 17 and 18, I got stuck in the prelims itself. So I did not get to give mains and interview.
Okay. So in 19, what changes did you make in your preparation, in your mental makeup, which brought this rank to you?
So talking about 19, like 2018 was a very good preparation of mine. It was that even in 19, I was not that well prepared for prelims as compared to in 18. So after I got the result and after I had not cleared it, I had thought of leaving it. So I think by October, I had not read anything related to civil services. But then I thought, let's give it another try. So it was not that I did anything differently. I just followed a strategy of how to attempt more questions or how to guess in your prelims. So basically, prelims is all about how much you know, and more about how well can you guess, and how do you minimize your negative marking. So a senior of mine, Achal, she had taught me this grid system. So she told me about making a grid on every page of yours, which has A, which means humko aata hai and I'm attempting it. Then half T, which is half tukka, wherein there are 4 options and you are confused between 2 of them, A and C. So there's a 50% chance that is right. And then 1/3 tukka, wherein you are confused between 3 options, and a full tukka, which is totally FT, which is totally sixth sense, and you are just shooting in the dark. So if I followed this and it helped me. But the thing is that this exam has 3 levels: prelims, mains, and interview, and each and every level has a different aspect of yours.
True.
So prelims is testing the objective and MCQs knowledge. Mains is testing your analytical skills and your subjective answer writing, and interview is actually called personality test. So many of my friends who have they can easily score 150, 140 in prelims, but they get stuck in the mains. And I myself have been stuck in the prelims, and then I cleared mains in the first go. So it depends on person to person. And moreover, since I failed prelims twice, I have a bias against prelims. A person who cannot clear mains and interview, they will be having a bias against that. So never judge or never go through the entire process verbatim of any topper, because he or she will be having some bias or the other. A person who has cleared in the first attempt, they will say that no, it's quite easy. If you do smart work, you can go through. A person who has done in 6 attempts, he or she will say it's very, very difficult. You have to study 18 hours a day. So it depends. Never ever follow something which has been said by a topper or any other person blindly. So in 19, I focus more upon current affairs and upon how to guess. So mocks. So this was the only difference which I did in 19.
Okay. Going back to a little earlier question which I asked you, Ronak, you mentioned that after 12th, when you started your graduation, you were more or less clear that this is what you need to do. So what do you feel that what is the right stage for any student, any aspirant to start preparing for CAC? Is it after 12th, after graduation, after post-graduation?
There is no right age. Many people, what they do is that they make their minds that I'll be going for UPSC after class 10. So 11, 12 is humanities, graduation is in humanities, and just after graduation, they appear for the exams. That is also a right stage because you already have 5 years of preparation dedicated to UPSC. That can be a good thing. Those who want to start the preparation after graduation, they complete the graduation, go for a year of preparation, and then appear. It is also no problem, not a problem. A friend of mine just called me yesterday. He's the same age as I am. He's rather a year elder. He's 28 right now, and he's saying that I want to leave my job and start preparing for UPSC. That is also right age. So it's just then when your mind is made up, that is the correct time. There is never you are late or never you are early for this preparation.
Okay. After completing your CA, you had worked for 2 years as a teacher in an institute. Now, while you were working, you were also preparing. So I want to address this question to you for the benefit of working professionals who are always in dilemma whether they'll be able to do justice to the time which is required for CSC. How will they manage time from their professional requirements? How will they keep a balance between what is requirement for the studies and towards their work? What was your experience? How did you manage this?
So being in a full-time job and teaching is actually different. So if a person is actually going for a corporate job, then I might not be the correct person to guide because I was more into teaching and teaching is also a hobby of mine. So when I was teaching in that institute, I was rather rejuvenating my mind by interacting with students. And moreover, teaching does not take 8 or 10 hours of a day. I just used to teach for around 5 hours at max. So it wasn't that exhaustive. And so it really is not comparable to a person who is involved in a full-time job. But yeah, we have had examples. Yeah, a senior of mine, Saurabh Bhuwania, yeah, he was, I think you must have heard about him. He was already working in RBI for 2 years. He's already married. He has a son, but still he managed to clear. So people say that it's not possible to go with a job. So we have an example as well. So we cannot really say there is no thumb rule. There is no one size fits all. But yeah, with a job, it is difficult. And for me, it was not a job. It was rather more of a vocation. I had a hobby. I channelized that. I could earn my bread and butter for myself, and I could just make my mind light with the studies of UPSC.
Okay.
So that was the thing for me.
Yeah, a working professional, because these days a lot of variants are available in the field of education, where somebody can opt for a 10-month concentrated course. You have options for taking a course which is in duration for about 2 years. So I feel that working professionals do have an option today.
Yes.
To continue working and put in energy towards this side, which is a little extended, and after 1 or 2 years, if the age is permitting, so they can take a plunge in this.
Exactly.
Okay. Ronak, when you were preparing, were you making notes? This is also a question which is much talked about. Do you need to make notes, or you should make notes only in the books? You should highlight and scribble there. It will save a lot of time.
So again, it depends how you have studied in your past. I never made notes for graduation or for 12 or for CA. So I did not make notes for this as well. But if you have a habit of making notes, then you will have to do it for this exam also. So again, it depends on how you study. What I used to do is that, for example, I always had a habit of studying from a variety of sources. So if I'm studying from 3 books, it is not possible to revise from 3 books again. So what I did was I made one standard book of mine. And from the other 2 books, if I need to refer something, I could write in that main book, go to this book, page number this. Or I could write in short what that crux of that other book is, just beside that book. So it depends on how you do. But according to me, note making can be a bit time killing as well, because I know many people say that you are writing what you are thinking, so it gets registered in your mind. There are various theories, but I was not much into note making. Yeah, but I did underline the things a lot. Like if I'm reading from a particular book, I know, for example, we talk about Lakshmikant. So there are so many things written in this one page. So it's not necessary that every time I revise that, I have to go through the entire page. So for example, when I'm reading any particular topic, and I think that this point I might forget in future, I will just underline that or circle that, so that next time when I'm revising, I won't revise the other topics and just those underline things. Okay. But for that, you have to know yourself, what you might forget, what you might be able to remember. There is again no thumb rule. Don't follow anybody blindly. But I did not make notes. A corollary to making notes, I would like to mention one thing. While answer writing, you have to have some masalas. Masalas in the sense you have to have some statistics, some reports,
Yeah,
some
those can be
quotations.
called as embellishments to,
Yeah,
decorate your
yes,
answer.
yes, yes. So I made notes for that. Notes in the sense I had a few documents, a PDF, a Word document, whatever one prefers. So I made a heading statistics, and there are some very common topics which get asked in general studies as well and in the essay writing as well. So I wrote those, for example, women empowerment. This is a very commonly asked question both in essay writing and GS1, GS4. So for statistics, I just wrote statistics heading. Point number one, women empowerment. Whatever statistics I came through in the preparation, I just, for example, I'm reading a magazine, a current affairs magazine, or a newspaper, and I think that this is important. For example, as per the IPU report, 14% of the MPs right now are women. Just a normal example. So I know that I can use this in various places. I just got to my computer or my paper pen, whichever I prefer, and then write that. So by a period of time of 2 or 3 months, you have a lot of statistics already in your hand on every topic. That will help you in essay writing and in GS. Similarly with the quotations, quotations do add a flavor to your essay writing as well, and even in GS if you can use it properly. I did the same thing with quotations as well. So this is how I made notes for these, which are not readily available in the market.
How did you manage the enormity of UPSC syllabus? What was your strategy?
So first of all, uh, knowing the syllabus is very important. Many people say go through the syllabus booklet 5 or 6 times. You must get it by heart. So by the time I had cleared prelims, I did not know that GS1 has how many topics. I did not know कि polity comes in GS1 or GS2. Doesn't matter this much because you have to do it in mains. Yeah, but you should be knowing that polity here, international relations is there, governance is there. You just must be aware of the topics which are to be studied. Secondly, make a list of all the things which you need to do with a time frame. Time frame in the sense, like for example, if a person starts preparing today for next year, so the exam is hopefully in May or June, and the aim should be to complete the prelims syllabus first by November or December, depending on whether you are working or not. If you're working, you might have different schedule. I'm just talking for a full time student. So make an aim that I need to complete the syllabus by November, for example. So you count the number of days which you have, number of months, and then the number of books which you need to study, not the hours, not the number of hours. Now, depending on the time which you have, and keeping a variance of around a month, complete the syllabus. Try and complete the syllabus once. What I did additionally was that if for example, I complete polity ka entire book in the month of August, people then go back to polity after they've completed their syllabus. So they will start in January. By the time January comes, this polity is totally erased off the head. So what I did was that along with a new topic or a new book, I always kept on revising what I had done in the previous month. So if I'm doing polity in this month, and next month if I'm doing geography, side by side at least an hour or two, or might be a week, I'll give to polity to revise what I have done in the last month. Many people, what I also did was I kept two subjects simultaneously. Not morning or evening, whenever I feel like. For 2 days, if I want to do polity, I'll do polity. The next 2 days, I might go for environment. It depends again on the person. Somebody might be more interested in completing a particular book and then going back to the other book. That is also fine. But just keep on revising those topics. Don't delay it till the time the syllabus gets completed. This is one way of managing this enormity. Second, monthly magazines. Many people go for PTs, which comes after just 2 months before the prelims. So they say that because it's already there, or the entire year's current affairs are already there in the book, I will not go for monthly booklets. But what I prefer is that when you read everything in every month and not delay it, then even if you go for PT or a compilation, you can revise it again, but you have an idea of what is happening over the around the year. But
Yeah.
if you open the book for the first time in March, then again you might not get time to revise your static portion, because that again will be a heavy toll on your brain. So better to divide that every month so that it becomes again an asset. This is another strategy.
Anything you want to tell us about essay? How did you practice essay writing?
So the main thing about essay writing is two things are the most important. One is the number of dimensions which you cover, and second is the flair of writing the essay. that flair actually has to be developed. It's not that you can learn it in a day or two, but number of dimensions is something which you can easily write, because we are studying so many varied topics in UPSC that you know a lot of things. For example, if you are giving any particular essay, then a person might ask dimensions. What are dimensions? Like, how do I evaluate what to write in the dimensions? So just think about all the topics that you have in your GS, and that becomes a dimension. So we have history. So you can write from the dimension of world history. You can write from the dimension of Indian history, from the ancient history dimension as well. You can write from dimension of art and culture. 4 dimensions already covered. Then you go for geography. Then you go for social issues, society. Then go for polity, for politically. Then go for economically. Then go for science and technology. So already from environment. So you have already covered 10 dimensions. Another dimension can be writing examples, current life examples, personal life examples, world examples. These are how you can broaden the horizon of dimensions. Specifically in the philosophical essays, I'm not from a humanities background, so like normally from the past 2 or 3 years, UPSC is asking one philosophical essay compulsorily, and you have to attempt that as well. So the part A this time had 4 essays, and all the 4 were philosophical. I had no idea what to write. What I did was I just wrote all the examples which I know, all the dimensions which I cover. Along with that, now let's come to the flair of answer writing, or flair of writing essays. So everybody might be having some or the other positive point. Many people can write good stories. You can start with a story or end with a story. Like I can write poems instantly. So I start with a poem every time. In every essay, I start with a poem. If needed, I might end with a poem as well, or I might end with a more something artistic. Like there's something called world preamble. You can write, for example, we're talking about environment protection. So the conclusion can be that let's together develop a world preamble wherein we, the people of the globe, hereby resolve to constitute the entire world into a stable, sustainable, and you just add the adjectives on line with the Indian preamble. This again gives a new dimension. You can write a quotation in the essay, whatever, how, not many, but 2 or 3. And now last point is whether you should write subheadings or not in the essay. It depends. Again, it is very personalized nature. I prefer writing subheadings, at least minimum 3 and maximum 4. So I used to write subheadings as well.
Okay. Now coming to the last stage of your selection, which is personality test. You mentioned that you had taken a lot of mock interviews and they did help you. There are certain attributes for a candidate which needs to be developed over time. You know, your oratory skills, how you carry yourself, your mannerism, which cannot be made overnight. So give us some perspective about how did you prepare for this personality test? Did you have to put focus on something, your body language, how you communicate, gestures? You know, some people use more gestures, some use less of them. So what was worrying you? Where did you put focus on? Because content-wise, generally a candidate who is reaching the personality test is more or less ready.
So as you said, that content-wise, everybody is strong who is appearing for the personality test. But the name of the exam is not interview; it is personality test. So it doesn't matter what you are answering. Only thing which matters is how you are answering and how are you tackling the counter questions. Regarding my preparation, so I stayed in Calcutta only. I did not go to Delhi. Even in mains, I stayed in Calcutta, and even for the interviews, I prepared from here. So I had taken some classes here in Calcutta from an institute. That helped me a lot. In the classes, I had covered some of the current affairs in detail. So the first thing is that be confident and sure of all the things which you know. The DAF preparation, this is something which is very normal. Like a senior of mine in the actual interview, she was asked, her pin code was, for example, 11 lakhs, 11005, for example. She was asked, explain how this pin code is generated, everything, the history, and how 1 is there, 00 is there, 55 is there. So you cannot really be prepared for every question in the interview. How you tackle is important. So try and cover all those obscure topics, whatever your graduation is in, whatever optional is, your address, your history. Since I was from Bengal and Calcutta, many people might have seen many mocks. So in all my mocks, around 80% of the time was just focusing on West Bengal because of many reasons. But in my actual interview, there was not even one mention of Bengal. So again, this you cannot really be sure what is being asked. At least try and cover all those topics. Second is try to be self-confident. You cannot really portray a fake sense of personality, because just in 5 minutes that will shower off. Better to develop one, and more importantly, while giving mocks, just try and improve on what you are being said. So I had taken many mocks, I had got various feedbacks, but I did not take every one of them. I'll just give an example. I speak quite fast. As compared to a normal person, my speech is very, very, very fast. But I was told that that does not become an hindrance in your answer speaking. Many people, what mostly do is that they think in Hindi or in any language and then convert that to English. So there becomes a stability and a poise. But since you are, that might be a thing. So I speak fast, but I did not improve upon that because I knew that is not a hindrance for me. Secondly, regarding hand gestures and neck movements, I do a lot of them. And that is very natural for me because I have been a teacher. A teacher has the habit of giving long answers first of all, and hand movements and movements. I tried to cut short on the length of the answers. This is not actually a personal the UPSC interview. Otherwise, I would have stuck to that time frame. And yeah, regarding hand movements and head movements, so you just need to improve on them. How you sit, the back should touch the back of the chair. These are some things which make you comfortable in that environment. Just one more thing in the interview, you must learn how to say no, or if you have said wrong, how to come out of that quagmire. Just develop that skill. Because in my actual interview, I was asked many questions which I have had no idea about. So I think that might have helped me how to say no. And yeah.
Okay. Ronak, when you were telling us about how you prepared, you mentioned that you used to watch a lot of channels on YouTube, I mean, which were short videos, and you gained a lot of knowledge from there. Now, there is also a problem of information overload. There's so much of excess of information that you get really overwhelmed with it. So now how do you discern? You need to know that there are some sources which are reliable, which gives you valuable, information which you need for CSC. So what were your sources and how did you identify them?
So again, I did not see the online content as a substitute for my main content. So if you're following an online content religiously instead of reading the books, then comes the problem of information overload. What I did was I had my book list already in my hand. I used to study that. Whatever videos I used to see, that was as a reminder and recalling session. For example, I might have read economic environment a month back. Suddenly I get to see a video on Sundarbans National Park. So because it was in the news, because it was declared a Ramsar site recently, there was a 5-minute video on that. So it had which river flows through it, what is the specialty of the trees in Sundarbans, why the name Sundarbans is there, then what different tags it has. National Park is there, heritage site is there, Ramsar is there. So it is not that I am referring to that video to learn about Sundarbans. I am watching that video to recall about Sundarbans. And if in any case I have missed any fact, I will see that video. And if I get a new fact from that, I will write that fact in my main source. So I will not make notes from that. So for me, information overload did not come into place because it was not a substitute of my main matter.
So your recommendation is that one has to be a little discreet in selecting sources, which is very important. Don't get overwhelmed by the excess of it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ronak, as I mentioned initially, that there are two categories of people which get kind of overlooked. One is working professionals and those students who are now starting their graduation. Let me ask you, what advice would you give to the working professionals in case someone is wanting to take a plunge in the civil services?
So first is that you should have a longer time frame in your mind. Better to keep one. If you clear in first, it's quite good. But if not, then at least have your mind prepared. Second is that there are something which you should be doing daily, like reading newspapers, monthly magazines every month. So stick to this. Do not delay it. Many people do it. What do do is for 3 or 4 months they won't study any particular newspaper or a magazine. Suddenly, after end of 4 months, they realize I haven't done anything. So better to I'll do it from the PT later on. Don't do that. And thirdly, have a fixed time frame to complete your syllabus. Don't be dependent on how much time you get, but be dependent on how much you need to complete in a week. By always find time to complete that, and becomes easy for you. And give as many mocks as possible, so as to have a reality check and on what level are you. Because if you do not have anybody to compare to, so you might really not know in how much water in deep are you. Better to give mocks, evaluate what is your weak point or a strong point, and yeah, then it becomes easy for you to pursue the further steps.
And what advice would you give to the students who have finished 12th and now they are starting their preparations for CSC along with their graduation? Because they have about 4 years with them.
It is the best time rather, because they have lot of 3 years. Graduation is not that taxing a course that they will have to study the entire day for just for graduation. They have lots of time to prepare for. So build your negativities. I mean, work on your negativities. So if you're slow at writing, if your speed is quite less, start working on them from day one. Start writing at least 3 pages in 10 minutes. Improve your speed, improve your handwriting, get more vocabulary covered, read newspapers that too deeply, form opinions, see Rajya Sabha debates. In this way, the basic study material, everything will be following. But these are the areas you can use your excess time on. Since you have more time, work on these. This will actually help you in your mains and interview.
Okay.
Yeah, don't follow anybody blindly. That is the main thing. And do not stick to any particular prescribed book list. Make your own list, evaluate the sources, and then do it from there. There are many people to guide you, many people to misguide you. Listen to everybody, but then evaluate yourself.
Thank you so much, Ronak, for being with us today and sharing your thoughts and your experience, your journey, which you had undertaken starting from 2017 and which has finally culminated in this year. Wish you all the best. We are grateful that you took out time from your very busy schedule. We understand that you were busy with your medicals also yesterday, which have been completed. Thanks a lot, and wish you many more laurels in future also.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you, sir.